welcome to Authorlink today to discuss your wonderful new book, Black Candle Women. It's such a pleasure to see you, especially when it's such a busy time of the year. And we really enjoyed this book. It was a wonderful multi-generational story of a grandmother and her granddaughters and their children, and about voodoo and about curses. And anyway, to you, tell us a little bit about your book.
Sure. Well, thank you for having me on today, and it's a pleasure to speak to you. So Black Candle Woman tells a story of several generations of women, the Montrose family, all living in one home in Southern California. They've been living their isolated lives as a protection against a curse, one that kills anyone with which they fall in love. And they haven't shared this information with the youngest Montrose woman, Nikki, who brings a boy home for the first time on her 17th birthday. And so that kind of forces them to grapple with something they've been postponing, talking to Nikki about, and gets them to thinking about if they want to, continue living their lives of they have under the grips of this curse, or if they want to challenge it in some way. And during the story, we also go back to 1950s New Orleans to hear about the curse's origin through the matriarch of the story, or of the family, Augusta. And there's some tie-in from that story to what happens in present day. And yes, there's some magic, some voodoo and hoodoo, and some fun stuff along the way.
Yeah, it's totally fun. So what is the difference between hoodoo and voodoo for our readers that aren't quite sure the difference?
These are concepts that they overlap and they complement each other, but voodoo is more the religion. New Orleans voodoo, it means voodoo means hand of God, and so it has to do. It's similar to when we think of Catholicism and saints. And has ties in Africa and Haiti and Latin America, and of course the Catholic Church. And then hoodoo is typically what people kind of think of when they hear voodoo, but hoodoo is the magic, the tricks and the spells and the tinctures and the powders. But again, they overlap and they complement each other, and they have similar foundations. So we have there's sisters, and so we have one sister who really gravitates more towards trying to manipulate life through tricks and magic, and the other that's more focused on the spiritual side.
I see. And what about the herbology that's involved when there's an overlay of herbs on magic spells? Is that the hoodoo or the voodoo?
That's more the hoodoo. That's more the hoodoo, although, yeah. But again, you see the crossover in many cases.
So this would be more like in the genre of magic realism, would you say?
Yes. In some ways there are some elements of magical realism. Yes.
Right. I mean, even though we're increasingly coming to an era where genres are deconstructed and they're not so slotted into marketing boxes anymore, but it's good to know when there are certain elements like this particular genre, which is one of my favorites in a book, because it makes you want to pick up the book quicker. But is there something about personally for you that do you believe in hoodoo and voodoo, spiritualism, or is that a personal question?
No, it's more. I grew up Catholic. My family is from New Orleans, and but I didn't really know much about voodoo or hoodoo. It's just something I did. It caught my curiosity. I'd go and visit New Orleans every summer with my mom. Her family still lived there, my uncle, and there's such influence in that city, and I just kind of became interested in it, and so I thought it would be great to tell a story. Especially, I really thought about just passing along information through generations. And very famous in New Orleans is Marie Laveau, who is there's like even a voodoo shop named after her. And so I just kind of started thinking, like, what happened to her, her family and her generations. And so that's kind of how the idea evolved.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, I suppose in every culture and country, there's an element of spiritualism or superstition, I suppose, or magic, or there's always that other element to our reality as humans that we have to tap into because it's just such a wild idea that we're even on this earth. But anyway, was this your first book that you have ever written, or did you have written, like, did you have other novels in the drawer secretly stashed away?
Yes, I've written. This is not my first. I wrote a book many years ago that I had an agent for it, and it was shopped around and didn't sell. And I wrote a second book after that didn't really go much further. After that one didn't sell, didn't really go very far because they were kind of connected. And so we tried that with my agent back then for a few years, and didn't work out. And I had a day job that kept me busy and kids, and so I went back to doing that. But I still always compelled to write and try something new, and so I wanted to hone my craft a little bit more. So I went back to school and started this as a writing prompt in one of my classes, and it just kind of blossomed from there.
Oh, lovely. And were your first two books fiction or non-fiction?
They were both fiction. They were a little bit more like chick lit. This was back in like the Shopaholic, and I remember those books, Shopaholic types of books, or also this was when kind of Emily Giffen first came out with Something Borrowed and Something Blue. So that's actually how when Something Borrowed, is that the first one came out? I looked at her acknowledgments and I found her agent, and that's who I reached out for because it felt kind of in the same vein. And so that's how I found my agent back then.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, who's a different agent than I have now, but yeah.
So that's courageous, and thank God you did, give it another shot. How did you find your current agent? Just the same old way?
No, actually, this was I kind of did things a little backwards. So I wrote this book also really many years ago. I've been working on it for a long time, shopped it around, I had a little bit of interest, but never connected with an agent on it. And I had kind of put it away on the back burner just because I loved it so much. I didn't want to let it go. But, I figured maybe I would try something else and come back to it. So when the pandemic hit and then things shut down, I started working on something completely different, and I was really focused on that. But in the summer of 2020, due to events that were happening in the world, there were a lot of businesses, organizations that wanted to reach out and do more with persons of color, black men and women. So in this case, Great In-House Books, they did an open call for unagented fiction from Black women. I believe it's Black woman. And so I submitted my book through that means. And yeah, and so got connected with my editor there. They said if they would give feedback on every um, query that they got, and
Mhm.
if they found something that they were interested in pursuing, then they would
Yeah.
connect people to agents. So I got my editor first, and she helped me find my agent,
Agent.
which
Oh,
was
that's
great because
wonderful. Yeah.
she was closed to queries. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have been able to, connect with my agent
Yeah.
otherwise.
What a wonderful opportunity. It's really good how the industry has these kinds of call outs once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
And have you thought about maybe a second book after this one that kind of follows on, or like a part two, or something completely different? Or
Well, I had gone back to that book that I had started writing in 2020, but it was very different than Black Candle Women. And so just last month during NaNoWriMo, I started working. Just the first day, I got this idea that it's not connected as far as any of the same characters or um, the storyline or anything like that. But the world is a little bit, there's overlap in the world. So
mm,
there's return, there's, I think it's going to have some touches in New Orleans and other places in the South, possibly. So yeah, it's just started working on it last month, but I'm excited about it.
yeah, it sounds good. And so, what's your normal writing routine? Can you just give us a little bit of an idea of your time? Is it like a 5 hour shift or a 1 hour shift or a 500 word shift?
Yes. Yeah, when I'm kind of in my zone, I'm not in it now. I need to find a way to get back. But I set a daily word count goal for myself, and then I'm always try to like get a few hundred words above that. But usually, depending upon what's going on, it's 500 to 1,000 words a day. If I can squeeze it in at the beginning of the day or end my day doing that, depending upon if I'm working that day or not. And that's kind of like every day. I even write on the weekends just because I like that muscle. That pattern, it really makes sense. So I also like I run, or sometimes I run, and so I liken it to when I'm training for one of my races. If I can jump in there and without training and do it, but it's going to be painful and it's going to be ugly. But if I'm like get myself used to running every single day, even if it's just a little bit, then I see results. And so I feel the same thing as with my writing.
Yeah, of course. And who's your first reader in general? Do you give it straight to your agent, or I mean, in this case, your agent saw it through your editor, but with your second novel, who is usually your first reader?
I am a part of a writing group also that I found during the pandemic. And so it's been really, really great. We're all over the country, but we meet virtually once a month, and we share pages and get really good feedback. And so, it takes some trust to offer your work to others for review and feedback. And so I feel like we've really built that over the last couple of years
Yeah,
working with these women. So yeah, those are my first readers always.
terrific. That's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
And have you always wanted to be a writer?
I've always liked to tell stories, and I've always been creative. And I like to I like to tell stories in any way. So screenplays or theatrical plays, or just like at my job, I always like write the going away. We do like a little play for if somebody's going away, just little things like that. I've just always been a storyteller. I think I didn't realize for the longest time, like, oh, you could do this for a living
Yeah,
until I was a little bit older. But yeah,
yeah.
I've just always been a storyteller, I think.
And a lovely nod to your parents with your dedication, how your father used to
Oh,
read your stories and your mother made you believe you could write them. I thought that was really lovely. And what do
thank
they
you.
think of your book?
Well, my dad, he's just very proud of me. I don't think I don't think he's gonna read it, but he just, he's just not really like a fiction guy, and he's older. But he's, I'll give him a copy, and he'll be very proud of me. My mom passed away a few years ago.
Oh, I'm
However,
sorry.
as I said, I've been writing this for a long time, so she read an early version of
Mm.
this, and loved it. So that
Mm.
makes me feel really good that at least she, at some point she read it, because she's such an inspiration behind me writing and the work, and again the trips to New Orleans. So yes,
Yeah, and some of the characters, perhaps.
a little bit. Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, are they based on anybody that you know, or are they a little bit of a conglomeration of a few people?
Yes, I'd say, yeah, little bits and pieces from just people I've met, people in my family, people in my husband's family. um, yes, those little bits and pieces that come together, and just a little bit kind of just pulled out of the air somewhere as well.
Yeah. Well, it was a really wonderful read, and we hope that one day it's going to become a movie or a show of some sort, because it's just such a visual kind of book, and so much fun to read. Thank you so much for
Thank
your
you.
time today. We really
Thank
enjoyed
you,
chatting
Anna.
to you about your process and about this lovely book, and look forward to your second, well, not your second, but the next one in this particular period of your life, and you know, many successful stories coming out of you in the future. And
Thank
also
you so
happy
much.
holidays.
Same to you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye bye.